In Sound of Freedom, it seems like somebody's trying to audition to be the new Liam Neeson as he takes on becoming the savior of children kidnapped and put into the sex trafficking industry. To summarize the film, Tim Ballard works for Homeland Security and he spends most of his days and nights either taking down pedophiles or documenting the footage and information that he's gotten from them, which sounds horrifying. But as time goes on, what starts to bother Tim is that he's only getting the end user. He's not saving any kid, he's not stopping the kids from being kidnapped in the first place. So when he's given an opportunity to save one, he does it. And then with that kid mentioning that they have a sister, this leads to Tim getting in his mind that he needs to go down to South America, save this kid's sister, and that is the focus of the movie. Him making contacts, including with a man named Vampiro, who used to be in a cartel but now buys kids and then gives them a safeguard afterwards. Tim is just trying everything he can to get into the underbelly of Cartagena's sex and kid trafficking and free this one girl and at the same time try to free as many other kids in the process. So, highlight number one. This film is not trying to depict the violence or sex that these children are subject to. Instead, what it usually does is hint to things. And it hints to things in the most subtle way possible so that your imagination, your worst case scenario, can take you to where this film doesn't want to go. So, you'll have it where there's a kid in the bedroom, there's some usually old creepy guy there. He's starting to unbutton his shirt, door closes, you get the idea. And while, yes, there's violence against kid on screen, like one getting smacked or something like that, that's as far as it goes, and for that, I'm thankful. The next highlight is it allows you to understand that people can become good or people can become bad, and it's not a gender thing. There's two characters worth mentioning when it comes to giving an example of this. Vampiro were introduced to as somebody who used to be a cartel leader who, after having sex with an underage prostitute, it changed his life. That sounds so horrible. But the idea is he didn't know what her age was. He felt terrible about having relations with her because he realized the darkness that was in her eyes because of all she went through. He is the darkness. So he then dedicated his life from doing drugs and whoring to now trying to save kids. On the flip side, there's Katie, who used to be Miss Cartagena, who uses her fame and being a woman in order to lure kids and also lure the defensive parents. And that gives you kind of the flip side. She's a woman who potentially doesn't have to be in this trade, yet she uses how people never suspect women to be part of these type of things. And that's how a lot of kids get into the trade. And it's just, and then when you add in the fact that Katie's not the only woman into it, it really helps you understand that yes, men are horrible people. I'm talking like I'm not a man, but at the same time, all systems in society, where you want to talk about patriarchy, sexism, racism, all that stuff, both men and women, non-binary, etc., take part in it. It's not just a one gender thing. Everybody contributes, everybody puts some oil, or else it's actually a wheel in the machine. Yet, at the same time, as shown by Vampiro, you can, since you may know the machine, you can work it so that parts of it break, people can get out of the machine. It really just all depends whether or not you want to go with the status quo or you want to actually make some kind of change. The next highlight for us is that it's a drama with action elements rather than an action movie with dramatic moments. Because I think easily Sound of Freedom could have been an action movie where it pushed the dude who played Alternative Jesus was just killing people, mostly South Americans, trying to get this one girl, and they could have painted a picture where South Americans are very much into drug trade, human trafficking, and also putting children into sex work. Thankfully, that's not the case here. As noted, it makes it very clear that some people are bad, some people are good. It's not a race thing, it's not a gender thing. And at the same time, in terms of what this movie wants you to do, it wants you to understand the emotion behind all of it. It's not about let's build up to the next action scene. It's about you understanding the emotion behind being someone like Tim Ballard who works for the government, trying to do good, but you don't get the support, you don't get the financing, so sometimes you have to go on your own. And at the same time, factoring in with Tim having like 5, 6, or 7 kids, the idea that this could happen to his kids, since trafficking is not just a non-US American thing, but it happens also in the States. So him doing this work, him saving other people's kids, it's more than like a karma thing, but it's actually giving these kids the opportunity to have a normal life. I mean, the whole name of the film, Sound of Freedom, is supposed to be about after Tim saves the kids, they're back to being children playing, pity pat games and laughing and all that. That's what he's trying to defend. That's what he's trying to give these kids. And as much as I know some people have very weird feelings about this movie for reasons that watching it I don't really understand, at the same time, I feel like it doesn't deserve most of it. And I would even say, I know that if you watch the mid or end credit scene, the dude who played Mel Gibson's version of Jesus definitely says the type of things that does hint to the idea that he thinks people in power that we know of could potentially be profiting and also continuing the child sex trade, but we're going to stay out of that. Which leads to the last topic, which is also an offense topic, which is Katie's motive. As kind of walked around before, Katie's not a nice person, not a good person, whatever you want to put it. She's someone who used to be a model, was Miss Cartagena, so how she went from Miss Cartagena to now being part of human trafficking, that's not really gone into. This movie is very black and white. There's gray when it comes to Vampiro, but otherwise, most people are either bad guys or good guys. And it can be very frustrating, especially with situations like Katie, because generally speaking, whenever you talk about sex trafficking or anything that's like evil and slavery wise, all the focus is on what the men did. You rarely ever get to hear what the women did besides potentially be victims of the situation. So this character being something different, as much as I know the point of this movie is not to glamorize in some kind of way what this whole situation is about or even humanize her, at the same time I was left so curious and kind of confused, how did her life go in this direction? And I know one of the answers, as is with most things, is money, but I feel like with the level of status she had, there are so many other ways she could have made money, from either modeling, product endorsement, whatever. Hell, even marrying rich compared to getting into trafficking. Overall, I think Sound of Freedom does a good job of trying to balance its message and advocacy with what essentially can be seen as an action movie. But as it walks this tightrope for about 2 hours, while it is definitely imperfect, one could submit it definitely succeeds in being entertaining, as well as a reminder of one of the longest running stains in human history.